It's almost zen.
Yeah.
In that he lets it go, and then it comes around.
You are listening to And If Love Remains, a unique show spotlighting people, ideas, science, culture, and art. Your host, Mike Lovett.
Rachel, yes, this is the big podcast in the sky, And If Love Remains, and you're speaking to Mike Levitt. And I have in studio today two fabulous guests, and I say fabulous in the most fabulous of ways. No, these are good friends of mine. I have Jim and James Transu. Really happy to have. We're going to be talking some movie, one in particular, but welcome. Glad to have you guys.
Thanks, Mike. I'm Jim.
Thanks, Mike. I'm James.
Glad we got that clear.
We're glad to be here.
That's right. And speaking of, I can't roll my R's. It's terrible. It was the worst as a singer not being able to roll an R.
I'll bet.
Yeah. Anyway, I would like to talk about a movie that you guys introduced me to. I have never been an evangelicist for any movie, a missionary for any movie more so in my life than this particular movie. And I've been telling everybody I could talk to how just epic and amazing, and they got to go see it. And that, of course, what is the movie?
RRR.
That is right.
I believe we should now refer to as RRR.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We could call it triple R.
Triple R.
It's not saving you any syllables.
It's not.
It's
No.
It's a
easier
little
on the
easier than
throat.
RR.
That's true.
It sounds like Mork from Ork, you know? RR.
No, and it is. And by the way, that's not the rating. That is the title.
It's rated triple R for thrilling. I don't even know what it's rated.
I don't know what's rated either. I've told people who have asked me. I said if I were to rate it, I would probably rate it a PG-13, maybe on the high side because of the violence. But it is seriously the most wholesome movie. There's no like sexual tension at all, or any kind of kiss, or there's nothing. It is so wholesome and so good, and but there is violence, there is blood, there is broken bones, and I must say we're going to do a non-spoiler free talk. We're going to talk about this thing. We're going to talk about as much as we can about it.
So super spoilery.
Super spoilery.
Super spoilery. We're just going to keep that joke rolling.
Yes, we are. That, I mean,
every chance we get.
So yes, I yes, go see the movie if you want to see it before you listen to this. I have to say, like any great work of art, no matter how much we spoil it, it does not do it justice. When you go see it, you'll be like, you guys missed half the stuff.
It's really too bad that it's not currently in any more theaters, because it's best with a big screen and big speakers.
Yes. Yeah, it really is. It is the epic. I mean, as Jim said coming out, I think the first time we saw it, it's the most movie of any movie I have ever seen in my life.
It's a lot of movie.
It's a lot of movie.
It's like 6 hours of movie packed into 3 hours.
In every way, it's a lot of movie. That's right. It's a big movie. But let's talk about it. First of all, how did you guys come across it? And how did you guys come across it? First of all,
you tell that story.
Well, about 8 or 9 months ago, there's a YouTube channel called Corridor Crew, and one of their more popular series is VFX Artists React. They've been doing a couple of Bollywood videos, and then they invited a guest to react to the visual effects in RRR. And the effects are maybe not the most realistic or impressive, but they are very immersive. There's a lot of animals in the movie, and every animal is CGI. And it's, again, not exactly the most realistic animals they could have done, but the story envelops you, it engulfs, and it really makes it compelling.
So seeing that video kind of made you go, I got to watch this thing? Like, what was it about that video that intrigued you?
I think one of the shots they reacted to was when Beam is getting chased by the wolf and then jumps out of the way of the wolf so that it dives into a tiger, and then the tiger's in a net and he has to hold the net back while the tiger is running at him. So when he roars back at a tiger that he's holding back with his bare arms, it was like, something's up with this.
Yes.
That's an awesome scene.
That is an awesome
And the
scene.
guys that were talking about the movie, they loved it. They were raving about it. So I looked it up, and it had already played in theaters and was no longer in my area. So that was unfortunate that I missed that opportunity, but now it was in theaters last week, 2 weeks ago.
It was.
When I went to see it.
Yeah.
Just before the Oscars, so.
And
they should have done it just after the Oscars, but I guess that's neither here nor there.
Right. Yeah. What was the and so do you originally you watched it on Netflix?
Sure.
Yeah. And it's available on Netflix
it's
right now.
available on Netflix, and it was then too. So yeah, so we saw it at home on the TV. The tiger versus wolf scene was just so amazing.
Yeah.
I think honestly the scene that really made me want to go watch it was early on in the movie where Raju is he's the kind of the fire character.
Mm-hmm.
And he's working for the British the Imperial Police.
I know this scene.
Right. And so there's like 1,000 people somewhere outside of Delhi, right? Outside of Delhi. It was in the deserts outside of Delhi.
Where a bunch of police
they're just like rioting against the police station, which is surrounded by a hurricane fence, right?
Right.
And one of the officers is offended by a thrown object, right? And he's like, arrest that man and bring him to me, right? And he's in the middle of 1,000 rioters. And Raju just like Spider-Man's over the fence with his stick in hand.
Right.
And I hesitate to call it realistic because like physics just doesn't apply.
No.
But it feels so real. Like he is getting the crap kicked out of him, and he just keeps pressing forward. At one point, they all like dogpile on top of him, and he's like hurting people at the bottom so that he can work his way back up.
In that scene, when he's at the bottom and they do an over shot, and it looks like and it looks like insects just like falling over,
like ants on a beetle.
Something out of World War Z.
Yeah, it's very World War Z,
but better.
Yeah,
but World War Z, but good. So I mean, I just loved that whole thing. I loved the way that he got up on top of the cliff because he could see the guy. The guy couldn't back up anymore because he was backed up against the cliff.
Yeah,
and Raju sees a way to get on top of the cliff. And then Jason Bourne wishes he was as bad as Raju because he knows he's going to get swarmed by the protesters at the top of the cliff, and he's counting on it.
Right.
So he uses their bodies and kind of hangs onto them as he pushes them off the cliff, and they all fall together, but he uses them to break his fall. That's amazing.
It's so well thought through. I think it's just so... It's so great.
So I had to see it. I mean, when I saw that, I was like, I have to find out, see everything that happens in this movie.
Yeah. So let's back up just a hair. So first of all, if you haven't gathered, this movie is from India. It is an Indian movie. It's from the I guess the Tollywood.
Tollywood. It's in Telugu.
It's in
Telugu Tollywood, because I guess there's two Tollywoods.
Yeah, apparently there's a Tollywood in Bali.
Huh.
But that doesn't make sense to me. You'd think Bollywood would be
right. Well, so, and I say that to say it comes from that heritage of like just being over the top. When I describe it to people, like the best thing I can think of, it's like Indiana Jones, except for the protagonist is like a demigod, and then you put them in the Marvel universe and go.
It is a superhero movie. They are definitely super.
They're definitely superheroes.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the jumps and the flips and some of the stuff that these guys pull off. But I never feel like it takes me out of the movie. I mean, I've definitely been in movies where I'm watching, I'm like, oh, come on. I mean,
Yeah.
pick a Jason Statham movie,
Yeah.
you know, and it's just like, really? But I don't know. I just felt like these guys could do it, and I felt like it was appropriate for the movie.
And to me, it's like watching a comic book. Like,
very much.
Like when you see, it's almost like the pows and the guys flying off the cliffs. It's like, you know that it's an artistic idea, and so you can buy into it because they just go full fist into it.
Right.
They do. It's just we are going all the way, man.
Right. So the movie itself is called RRR because the director and the two actors.
The director is S.S. Rajamouli. The man that plays Raj is named Ram Shriram. I don't remember how you pronounce that. I mean, inflection, but. And then the other guy, Kumaran Beam, is played by a man named Junior N.T.R.
Yeah, but the R is also like
A name.
Ram something. So they were the three R's.
I don't think I knew that was why that
was the working title.
It's like the equivalent would be if Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, and Steven Spielberg made a movie called SSS.
Gotcha.
Right. And the actors and even the director, they're like idolized in India.
They are rock star level celebrities.
They are rock star level. So they just kept it. I mean, they came up with Rise, Roar, Revolt kind of after the fact.
Right.
My understanding is they did like some polls online to find out like what RRR should stand for in each of the 172 languages that they dubbed it in. That might be a slight exaggeration.
Not much though. I
think there's at least 14 different dubs.
It's crazy.
And 13 of those are in India.
Right.
Wow.
There's a lot of languages. So they had to come up with a different reason to call it RRR in every language. So there's that. Beam, Kumaran Beam, and Raju, those were real revolutionaries back in the early 1900s.
Yeah, so this is taking place in the
1920s is when it's supposed to start.
Right.
So in the real, and I guess I should have started way back in the beginning by saying I don't think any of us are in any way experts on Indian culture or history. I couldn't even begin to touch the pantheon of gods that they have in India, but I know that Ram Raju, named after the god Ram, the Lord Ram.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a real revolutionary. I think ultimately his big contribution was, I want to say 92. I think that's when he was finally truly killed.
Okay.
By the British. It might have been a little bit later than that. And then Beam, Kumaran Beam, is also apparently named after a god.
Okay.
And he was a real revolutionary who really did fight mostly for the tribals, for the right to control their own land. And I think he ultimately was killed in the 40s.
Okay.
1940.
Okay.
I think.
So there's this period of time where what they actually did in the real world is kind of unknown.
Yeah.
Right? So Rajamouli had this idea, well, what if they met and became the best friends ever?
Yeah.
And that's so kind of the story, right? And
yeah. It's a reimagining of history.
Definitely.
Taking these icons and making them more iconic.
Right.
And,
right.
And again, like neither of us know the history of India, and it's so big. Like it's hard for us to imagine how big from a population standpoint India is and how many different subcultures there are. And so when Britain when it was part of the British Empire, there was no kind of, as I imagine, there wasn't like a uniting factor other than we want to get the British out. I guess it's imagine if the 13 colonies like actually were all like different religions and different cultures and we wanted to get the British out. So we got together to do that. And then we literally separated. And,
right. Presumably would have been somewhat more difficult.
Yeah.
We all had different languages and different gods.
On that note, there is an interesting couple of scenes in RRR where they are speaking two different languages.
That's true.
So Raju is he's undercover and he's trying to find Beam. So he goes to a revolutionary meeting, and the people that are trying to coordinate and organize everything and spouting different political ideas, they are saying it in one language, and then someone else is immediately translating what it says because the people in the room don't speak the same language.
Okay, that makes sense. I recognize that.
Yeah, there was that scene where we may as well kill the king, and then he immediately turns to the audience and says, "I just told him that we may as well kill the king,"
right? Because
he's now translating himself, and we don't hear the different languages. We don't.
So the movie is captioned, but surprisingly, a lot of it is in English because the English are involved, and whenever the English are present or they're speaking to the English, they're talking in English, and it's when they're speaking to each other that they're speaking, their own language,
or when the songs are playing,
with
the best lyrics.
They kind of are. I mean, like it's pretty.
It might be worth learning the language just to understand the lyrics as originally written.
Yeah,
because they are pretty phenomenal. The British are the most evil.
Right.
You thought what's his face was bad in The Patriot,
right? Right. Yes, that dude who like burned people alive in the church. Yeah, handsy.
Right.
What a bleeding heart liberal compared to these guys in the movie. What's her name? Elizabeth Duty? Is that her name?
Alison Duty?
Alison Duty. She plays like the wife of the governor.
Right.
We were talking after you and I saw it, Mike. Like it seems like she was sitting around one day and she said, I did play a Nazi spy in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, but I don't feel like it was evil enough.
Right.
I need to be someone who's a lot more sadistic than a Nazi. And they're like, why not a British? Perfect.
What does the role entail? Well, you start by kidnapping a child.
But where's the blood?
Right.
And then later you're going to carry around a spiked whip between your legs for some reason, just in case someone isn't bleeding enough for you.
Yeah, she is the most evil. And so, the inciting incident for Beam is there's a little girl, Molly.
Mm-hmm.
And she is, she's doing art. It's kind of like henna, but she's using different plants that have different colors. So she's doing this kind of intricate henna work on the woman's hand while she's singing a song. And the woman decides that she's going to buy this little girl. So she tells her henchman, and he throws a couple of coppers down. And nobody in the village understands this because they're innocents, right?
Right.
The Indians are almost always good guys, right?
Yes.
So they don't really understand, but the tribal chieftain is like, oh, she's this is a token of appreciation for the song, right? So the woman picks up the coins, at which point the British have now in their own minds completed the transaction, and they proceed to stuff the girl into the car and drag her away.
Right.
Screaming. The mother runs in front of the car, and that's when we get one of the recurring themes.
And one of the best villain introductions I've ever seen.
Right? Oh, yeah.
Let's see. The woman stops the car. One of the officers brings a gun to her head and is about to shoot when the man in the car, the governor Scott Buxton, says, "Soldier, do you understand the value of the bullets in your gun?" And after he explains how hard and long and how much trouble that the Empire has gone through to make this bullet, it cost 1 pound. You don't waste it on these folk. Find another way. So this soldier, deciding not to shoot the woman in the head, grabs a tree trunk and smacks her head in.
Exploding the trunk that he hit her with.
Yeah.
Like, it's so intense. When I first saw it, I'm like, what am I watching?
No, absolutely. That was the first moment where I thought, what have I gotten myself into?
Right.
You know?
Right. You know, it always reminds me of another movie in the British are the worst cinematic universe, Braveheart.
Yeah.
Where Braveheart goes into Mornay's bedchamber on a horse and just shatters his face with a mace.
Right.
And it's all on screen, and it's that kind of intense, like, wow, what did I just see?
Right.
Only somehow it's worse when it's a crying woman. And
begging for her
a
child.
log just explodes on her head as the guy just shatters it.
There's a great shot of her hand on the ground with the copper pieces covered in blood while her child is being driven away. And it's just one shot that encapsulates everything like the perfect painting and the perfect comic book frame. That is the story.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what sends Beam.
And so and so Beam is like the protector of this village.
Mm-hmm.
And so they, call out to him and say, we want our daughter back.
We want Molly back.
Yeah.
And so people watching it might get confused if they don't understand that all of the men in the village call each other brother.
Right.
All of the women are their sisters. They're not really brothers and sisters. They just say that.
And if you're older, then it's
and
uncles.
uncle.
Yeah.
That's very, very normal, even in India today. So that's kind of important. But yeah, that's what sends Beam to Delhi. And then I've already talked about our introduction to Raju, where he does this amazing feat to bring this guy back.
Right.
And we learn kind of obliquely, we learn that the reason that he's willing to fight so hard is because he wants to be promoted to the rank of special officer.
Right.
And so the next time we see him, he's being passed over for the rank of special officer because he's Indian.
Yes.
Right? I mean, there are 3 guys who get it, and you just look at these guys. Yeah. I'm sure that the talent pool in India is small anyway, right? But you just look at these guys, there's like no way these guys did anything more extraordinary than we've already seen Raju do. So.
And there's a great scene later on that we'll probably get to, but where they're saying, nobody wants to go after Beam, and Raj,
Do you want them dead or alive?
volunteers, and the colonel goes, I can vouch for this man.
Right.
No kidding.
Scares the poopy out of that
Oh
colonial
yeah.
officer. Because that was a moment, when the junior officer was like, "Oh, I was
scared
so
out of my wits."
scared," and the older officer looks at Raju. He scares me more.
Right.
Like,
then the literal thousands of people
right
that are
he
surrounding
stood down.
him.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Another single great shot of he assumes his position after having just beaten this crowd of thousands, and they back away from the fence, and then it just shows his eye reflecting the crowd backing away from the fence. And it's another great shot of, this is the story. This guy is scaring all of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. He does that. He comes back and he basically grabs the
Freshens
fire
up.
He grabs these buckets for the fire brigade, buckets of water, and splashes on his face, and then just, man, as soon as
Grabs a new stick.
and just bang, he's in line, and the rest of the regiment is just like, what did we just witness here?
Yeah. I don't, even though he's fighting for the British, you can't help but just be in awe of
Right.
this guy, right? And when you see him get passed over, even though they haven't talked about like he's doing this for a goal or anything, right? They haven't really mentioned that at all. But you see these 3 pasty, stupid Brits get promoted to special officer. You can feel his disappointment through the screen.
Yep. Well, then they do that shot where he looks at the dome,
Right.
which becomes significant later, and you don't know what it's all about, and you don't understand. It's interesting because in one way you're like he's totally on the bad guys team. He's complete like is he going to be the guy that Beam has to go through? You see that conflict's going to happen, and at the same time like you feel like there's something deeper to this story that we're completely missing.
Yeah, it really is cool to watch it for the first time, not knowing anything about who these people are and what they do.
Yeah.
And then you watch it the second time and things click more. And again, spoilers, go watch it.
Yeah, if you haven't watched it and you're still listening to this, stop now.
Stop.
We told you some stuff, but we haven't totally blown it for you.
No.
You've got to watch the movie, even if it's only on Netflix.
Yeah. Absolutely, you've got to watch it. It is.
So here we go.
The
first time you watch it, that is a villain's introduction. This man has beat the crap out of 1,000 people.
Of his own people.
Of his own people. And he is apparently very much on the side of the British. He wants to ascend the ranks of the British army. And now he is going to hunt a man from his own country on a good mission because he wants this rank. He wants to be a special officer, and it feels evil.
Well, that's the thing. It feels so evil, but at the same time, like you like
get why he wants this.
You feel, you don't think he's a protagonist, but you think like, man, he's like, I want to root for this guy. I really want to root for this guy, even though he's so evil.
What was going on? Yeah,
Right.
And then the second time you watch it, he's not a villain. He's just dead set on becoming an officer so that he can get the guns for his village. And it's single-minded for a completely different reason, but it still weighs.
Right. Yeah.
He later in the movie, he quotes from the Bhagavad Gita. And I'm sure I don't remember it, but it is something like don't.
You have every right to work, but not to expect a result.
Well, he does say that, but I was thinking of the next thing that he said, which basically was like don't work for the end,
Right.
But neither get attached to inaction. So he's going to be constantly moving towards his goal, even when he knows it's impossible.
Right.
Because the end is just what he's aiming for, but it's his job, his responsibility is not to win or lose. His job is to keep moving forward as long as he can.
Yeah. And that is a powerful,
and especially in the context.
Right.
Yeah.
And definitely, I mean, when you watch it again, you can see that motivation all the way through. And at first you're like, okay, he wants to be a special officer. And hunting down Beam is a way that he has been promised if he can bring him in alive, he gets the rank that he's been wanting, right? So that's now we've got it set up. Beam is trying to find a way to get Molly back.
And it's important to know that he doesn't know what Beam looks like.
Not at all.
He doesn't know any. They ask, what's a file? Well, we don't know. He doesn't know anything about them.
History,
he just knows that
photos.
there's somebody coming for the governor to get Molly back.
Right. Somebody in Delhi doesn't like the governor.
Right.
Wow.
I volunteer.
Right. So he, that's the setup, and he goes about it as you would expect in an intelligent way.
Yeah.
Right. He's like, I'm never going to be able to just walk around saying, "Are you here to kill the governor?" Right. So he goes to where the kind of people meet. He poses as a revolutionary to try to kind of wheedle his way in.
Right.
Right. So, and then we've been introduced to Beam. And I got to say, I really love the introductions. It's like R, the story, right? And then R, the fire, and then R, the water, where we first actually see Beam. It's after the girl has been hurt, and he's in the woods outside of Delhi.
Yeah.
And the camera swoops in on him, and you realize as it rotates that what you've been looking at the top of the screen has been his reflection in the water the whole time, because the whole water and fire thing keeps coming back.
Yeah, that theme is definitely strong throughout. It's pretty overt.
It is not a subtle theme, but
no. I mean,
well, nothing in this movie is subtle.
Nothing is really subtle. But that doesn't mean that it's bad.
No.
It's just very
clearly
clear-minded.
Right.
So yeah, he's in the woods. He's pouring blood over his head for reasons
that will later become apparent,
right? And then that's where we get finally the famous scene where he's running through the jungle, and a wolf is chasing him.
Right.
And he looks down as he's running, and he sees a tiger's paw print in the mud, and his eyes get big, and he starts looking from side to side, and he's like, I'm gonna need a new loincloth after this. He's looking around, he's watching for that tiger, and then it might have been serendipity, it might have been his genius.
Right.
But he ends up, basically punching a tiger with a wolf. He just, as the tiger jumps, he ducks, the wolf slams into the tiger. The tiger's mad at the wolf.
Which brings up another theme.
Scared to death.
I mean, that's another theme of this movie is just awesomeness when it comes to animals.
True. Yeah.
By the way, I have to say, the first time you see it, you know where I'm going. The first time you see it, and there's this huge disclaimer,
right,
about how there are no tigers,
deer, oxen, snakes, fish. It just lists every animal in India.
Right. It says these are all computer generated, and nothing was hurt, and you're like, what is going on in this movie?
Right?
Yeah, I mean, okay, it says no animals or birds were harmed in the making of this film. Horses, oxen, birds, tigers, wolves, bears, leopards, deer, fish, and snake are all computer generated.
And that's at the front end of this movie.
Right.
Anyway. What is going to happen?
Right. I really do feel like if I just walked into a room and I saw that disclaimer on the screen, I'd be like, well, hit play.
Right.
What am I about to see?
What is going to have tigers, deers, leopards, and oxen?
And so this is that so yes, he punches the tiger with the wolf.
Effectively, right? The wolf was not looking for that. He didn't want anything to do with it. But anyway, they end up fighting the tiger, as has already been described, and
capturing it.
Right? This is he's supposed to be here to get Mali back, right? What is he doing in the woods playing with wolves and tigers?
Right.
I don't know.
And one of the cool things I kind of realized on, I don't know, my third rewatch is that the reason that the tiger gets into the net and then the rope that's supposed to hold the net back breaks is probably because they weren't expecting to capture a tiger.
That's right.
They were after a wolf.
They were going
much
after a wolf.
smaller animal. And then this thing comes up, and that's why we get to see this scene, because things are going south fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one way to describe it.
Yeah, no, it's clearly the trap was not made for that kind of bulk.
No. But then, there's a moment later after the two have met where
during the friendship montage
where he's carrying these two huge what do you call it? Beef quarters,
right?
I guess.
Yeah.
Right. And Raju is already his friend, and his uncle's like, geez, do you think he has enough to feed his hunger? Right? And then we see he hands the meat off to somebody who sticks it into a hole in the wall, and they're keeping the tiger.
And you're like,
they're feeding the tiger. What are they doing with the tiger?
Which will only be relevant at the end of Act 1.
In another hour?
Right, in another hour. Like, it is interesting because of the way the movie is structured, because of the length of it. There are things that you forget, and then you're like, oh.
Right.
And it's legitimately, it's not like, even like as awesome as like Sixth Sense was and stuff like that. Like, that movie's not long enough for you to like totally forget something and then have it be brought back in another scene and go, wow, okay.
It is a wonderful experience to have truly forgotten something that was iconic, and then when it comes back, it just lights up your brain.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, even the first couple of times I watched it, there was a connection that I failed to make, where before Raju is even told about Beam and even goes on his quest, there's a man in the office of the governor explaining to him that these villagers, they have a shepherd, and the shepherd will
Protect the
will come
flock.
for that lost lamb no matter what it takes.
Yeah.
And even if it's in the mouth of the tiger, he will break its teeth and jaws to take it back. And the British guy, the worst people ever.
This is
like,
the British guy
"Are
that
you
actually
telling-"
gave the coins to the
Right,
woman.
right. He's the guy
He
who
was
actually,
directly responsible.
Yeah.
He said, "Are you telling me that this tribal is going to take down the British Empire with his bow and arrows?"
And
then 2+ hours later, he does
Right.
with a bow and arrow and a stolen motorcycle. But,
Right.
and to be fair, it wasn't Beam
Beam.
who shot the arrow, but that's not the point.
No.
He was definitely on the team.
He was
that took it down.
He was on the bow and arrow team.
for sure.
And these weren't any regular arrows.
No,
These were grenade-tipped arrows.
well, self-made.
Yeah, those are awesome.
Let me just whip this up in the battlefield. What do we got? A grenade?
And yet another thing that if all you've heard of the movie is 3 words: grenade tipped
Grenade-tipped
arrows.
arrows.
Press play.
Gotta watch it, right? So I love that callback.
Yeah, that is great.
But then when they actually meet for the first time, you want to talk about how they meet?
Oh yeah, this is the most
The
epic.
bridge.
The bridge, the 40 minutes into it, and we still haven't seen the title card.
Right.
So I'll just go over the whole thing.
Yeah, just talk about like
there's
why it's
this-
significant.
There's this kid in the water, and he's surrounded by fire. So Raj and Beam dive off of the bridge.
Okay, hold on. We gotta back up. a
Yeah,
little
you
bit.
got to go back a little
Yeah,
farther
so-
than that.
So, okay, so so Raj is on a bridge, okay, right? And there's a train going underneath the bridge,
Right.
and the train catches fire.
So the train and the bridge are all one unit, and they're like
it's like a
tracks
walking
under
bridge
the bridge,
above.
over the water.
the river.
Right. Train catches fire, and it's presumably a gasoline, oil of some sort, car falls into the river and explodes. And there is a young kid who's out getting fish
For Beam.
for Beam. That's right. And he is stuck and he is begging for help.
Right, because
So-
the water's on fire.
Right. So Raj sees this happening. He's on and what does he do? Take it away, James.
Well, first he waves to see if anyone else can see him, and then Beam sees him, and then they do, let's see, 2 hand signals. He crosses his arms and then indicates to Beam to come to the bridge. So Beam just grabs a motorcycle, runs up to the bridge. Raj gets on a horse, and then let's see, 2 more hand signals, and they've got the plan down. They know exactly what's going to happen. So they're driving towards each other. Raj grabs a flag. Why? Because it's, an Indian movie. We like over-the-top imagery. Of course we're just going to grab a flag. It looks
Huge
awesome.
Indian flag.
Huge Indian flag.
And it's like one of the original flags of India. So that's, historical context and of import. Then they dive off the sides of the bridge.
Opposite sides, while tied together by
While
rope.
tied together. Because, of course.
This huge length of rope.
Raj is soaking the flag in the water as he's swinging like Tarzan. Meanwhile, Beam, on the opposite side, is also swinging and grabs the child, lifts the child up, and tosses him to Raj to get the kid out of the way, and then Raj throws the soaking wet flag to Beam, which is a great poster shot to just see these two guys throwing a child and flag across each other. It's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
So then Raj grabs
and
the
it's
kid.
a really good thing he grabbed that flag.
It really is.
Raj grabs the kid, swings him out of the way. Kid is safe. But now Beam is swinging back towards the fire. So he wraps the soaking wet flag around him to protect himself from the scorching flames for just long enough to swing back and then
Hand clasp.
hand clasp,
meet in the
title
middle.
card, and they are laughing at the wonderfully awesome stunt that they just pulled off to grab this kid out of danger.
And who wouldn't? I mean,
Right.
really.
Who wouldn't? They definitely just became best friends. And then there was the most beautiful, like,
Friendship montage.
we just became friends montage ever.
Oh,
It starts after they untie themselves and plunge to the bottom of the river.
and have the
And
happy
they're
walk.
They're like running across the bottom of the river to like congratulate each other.
And seriously, they have the biggest smiles on their
Right,
faces.
they're
It's
just so
hilarious.
happy.
It's so great.
And I don't know, man. I mean, I think because it's everything in this movie is done in earnest,
Yes.
right? There's no sly wink at like, aren't we corny? There's none of the Marvel like, let's undermine everything with inappropriate humor.
Yeah,
which
they don't
was funny the
immediately-
first time.
They don't
Right.
immediately grab each other and they say, I can't believe that worked. There's no way that should have been able to happen.
Nope, they don't do that at all.
because it did work. It did happen. And now we're just excited.
Right. And
That-
there's no, dumb kid that hits the lever and goes, oops, didn't mean to do that.
Right.
There's no winking at the audience. Like, it is so pure and wholesome.
It really is. And I mean, some of it's melodramatic and some of it might be called corny, but I think because it's so sincere, everything is so in earnest.
And it's also confident.
It believes in itself.
Everything
Yeah.
it does, it thinks is the right thing to be happening right now. It never, at least to my mind, it never second guesses itself.
Well, no. Raju does,
Yeah.
Right.
which is a plot point. Right.
Which will be coming up.
Right. Right. So, best friendship montage ever with just the best song ever.
Right.
Right. About friendship. Like, if
Again,
you
that's what the
thought-
subtitles
if you
are really
thought
for.
Toy Story, You've Got a Friend in Me was like
Oh.
emotional. Like, this thing is like multiply it by itself 6 times. You know,
And-
it's
And it's written like an epic. So it's like saying, trouble is coming.
Right, trouble is coming.
Friendship between free will and destiny. This,
between the volcano and the storm.
Yeah.
we can only see if this will end in bloodshed. Like, oh, you guys are trying to hint at something, aren't you?
No foreshadowing at all.
I mean, let's
Subtlety is
just
not
see
what
where
it's
everyone's heading. This guy wants to get a kid. That guy wants to kill this guy for getting that kid so that he can become a special officer. Ooh.
about.
And also, you really appreciate you don't see stuff like this since the 30s in America. The kind of manly friendship that they do sincerely have. Like, it is like, if this was done today in Hollywood, it'd been much, much, much different.
Of course. Well, even a lot of the Americans reviewing it are like, "Ooh, look at the sexual tension between." There is
Right.
no sexual tension between these
No.
two guys. Yes, one of them says, like,
I have had your friendship, and that means more to me than my life.
but that's India, man.
Yeah.
These are two guys who are completely like they care about each other
And they absolutely
it's
trust each other.
okay,
Yeah.
right? Like it's not sexualized.
Nope.
As you had pointed out, even the male-female relationships are not sexualized.
No.
I mean, like, I've seen more action on I Love Lucy,
Right.
you know? This is just how most Indian movies still today are. Like, there's not even kissing between men and women most of the time.
Yeah.
In Indian movies. So it is. It's like what is it? Frodo and Samwise level of friendship, right?
That's a great comparison.
It's very much like that. And actually there's now that I've said it out loud, I mean, there is a bit of Frodo in Raju, in that he's taking on this huge task.
Yeah.
And he is
surrounded by corrupting influence.
He is surrounded by corrupting influence. And one of the themes of the movie is not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but like, how far do you go in pursuit of a noble ideal?
Yeah. How
much are you willing to do before you become what you're fighting against?
Yeah.
And, he's
riding that line, man.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And there are points in this movie where if you don't feel tears welling up, then I don't think I want to be your friend.
Yeah.
Like when he's, again, getting ahead of myself, but when he wipes, when Raju wipes Beam's blood and his own tear.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
No, and that, we're definitely going to get into that, because I think that's a big theme of like, the idea of being so, it's interesting, like, and we'll get into this, but once Raj, like, in a way gives up his all-encompassing goal, that goal happens.
Right. It's almost Zen.
Yeah.
In that he lets it go, and then it comes around.
You are listening to And If Love Remains.
The first of 23 installments requested by Dr. Levitt. We're trying to be in compliance here because we're taking him and that whole organization down.